Hello class, for today's performance I would like to share with you a poem that I wrote about a story called The Lady of Galeras. It is Irish folklore collected by Thomas Croker and first published in 1834. It's about a man who meets a Merrow, and what a Merrow is an Irish mermaid. And I've adapted it to poem form for time constraints, and also it seemed like a good thing to do, and I hope you enjoy. There once was a man named Danny who lived beside the sea. Poor Danny boy was unlucky in love as ever a man could be. One day he stood upon the hill, smoking away at his pipe. How lucky, said he, would I truly be if I could find a wife. So he looked around, both up and down across the Isle of Green, until he saw the prettiest sight that he had ever seen. Among the rocks near water's edge sat a girl with hair of green, and Danny swore he'd never before beheld a lovelier being. Beside her sat a cap of red, and suddenly he knew his fortune now has changed for good if the stories all be true. For if this girl a Merrow be, he'd only have to snatch her cap of red, and soon they'd wed, and a plan began to hatch. For the legend goes, for those who know, that a Merrow often weds the men ashore, for they by far have more attractive heads. For the men below that have been seen, their faces look like swine. So a Merrow often goes ashore to find a face that's fine. So Danny snuck and snatched the cap, and the Merrow began to weep, for without her cap she never again would swim beneath the sea. Danny dried her tears and soothed her fears, and she promised to be his wife, and she told him all about her home, and with that she changed his life. For she, the daughter of a king, would never want for naught. The king below would send his fish with whatever she'd want brought. So the two went down to the nearby town to find themselves a priest. The priest said no, until his palm did Danny neatly grease. 3 years went by, 3 babes were born in the cottage by the sea, and Danny and his Merrow bride were as happy as they could be, until one day Danny went away to visit a nearby town. That night the Merrow cleaned her house, her cap was soon found. Suddenly a grief she felt, she thought she'd left at sea. She made up her mind to visit her kind and visit her family. So she kissed her daughter and kissed her sons and said she'd be home before long. But when Danny came home, the babes were alone, and he knew that something was wrong. The babes were too small to say what they saw, but the neighbors were quick to speak, that they'd seen the Merrow, where the sand met the sea, disappear beneath their peaks. She never returned, for the sea was her home, and that's how a Merrow behaves. And now you know what happens to those who seek love beneath the waves. Many a man has learned, just like Dan, about Merrows from the sea, who think that they're lucky until they're left behind with a family of 3. Thank you for listening.